is project management? And I'm not some project management guru, but I've been through the trenches, I've been through the battles, and I've watched our small firm grow from 2 people to a whole lot of people. And from our company putting projects through, and in that, I felt that there's something to say. And in a way, it's a story of Ping Vision, and yet it's not. We talk a lot about agile, waterfall, cowboy. Well, what are those terms? Isn't it all project management after all? Well, let's take a look and see. Project management. What is it? Get on this bucking bronco, and are we doing an agile system, or are we doing cowboy? Well, what do we mean by agile and cowboy, even in this metaphor? Agile. Marked by ready ability to move with quick ease, grace, as an agile dancer. Or having a quick, resourceful, and adaptable character. And if we look at our guy here, his horse is taking him somewhere, and he is being very agile. So maybe there's something to agile in how he's responding to something that's unpredictable. Cowboy. One having qualities as recklessness, aggressiveness, or independence, popularly associated with cowboys as a reckless driver, or a business person operating in an uncontrolled or unregulated manner. Now, when we started the company, we started doing our first projects, I thought we were being pretty agile. But I look back now and see how our projects really weren't quite as agile as we thought. And through that, we grew. I once heard somebody say that Walt Whitman didn't write The Leaves of Grass. Walt Whitman became Walt Whitman when he wrote The Leaves of Grass. And through this process, Ping Vision became Ping Vision. Our process became our process. And this is that story. You can't tell by just a quick look. You think at the beginning, like we did, we were doing everything right, and we were given where we were. But once you leave that starting gate, you can wind up here. And as it turns out, when I got this photograph, I looked it up, and the person there survived uninjured. But these things can get away from you. And we all want to be heroes. We want to ride into town like the man with no name, Clint Eastwood, in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Blondie, the man with no name who comes in and is cool, and knows what he's doing, and shoots a gun and fires 3 shots and knocks out 4 people with 3 shots. And he shoots from the hip, and everything's wonderful. We want to be seen, I think, by our clients as the hero, and oftentimes we get painted into that role. However, once the project gets underway, things don't go always as planned. Sometimes we're strung up for various reasons, and some of those reasons may not even be our fault. Sometimes we're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes we're a scapegoat. Whatever the reason is, it doesn't always go as planned. And that's the issue of agile versus waterfall versus cowboy versus any plan you come up with. The further you go in, the more you learn, and the more you find out you had to know at the beginning. So how do we approach this? First, we should seek solid advice. We should ask someone who's smart. We should ask a Drupal rock star. And he says, Drupal is not really all that hard, and project management is easier than you think. Projects boil down to work versus time. It's an old photograph, so it's a little bit hard to read. What if Einstein's not available? What happens if we don't have a project management guru? What happens if we can't go out like our consultants tell us the other day and say, well, go out and hire yourself a guru, hire yourself a board of directors, get an advisory council. Well, there are books out there on how to manage projects. And here's some of them, and they're all pretty good. Actually, most of the books in the library on these projects or project management are good. I've used all of these here, and I find them acceptable. And there are different methods here. Some are for Agile, some are using Microsoft Project, others are using risk programs like At Risk. They're just books on how to be good project managers. Here's one on writing use cases, which is something that we can talk about a little bit later. We begin by having to look at a couple of basic facts. First, what's the size of our project that we've been handed, and what's the size of our team? And a lot of what I'm going to speak about this afternoon is the fact that these two issues for us grew. We started with small projects and ended up with large projects. We started with a small team and ended up with a large team. But in that transition, from the small project to the large project, from the small team to the large team, we changed how we did projects. We changed our methodology. We became who we were and are. So, what about our team? That's pretty easy to know. One-person shop. A lot of folks are one-person shops, and a lot of us start here. And there's a tendency to say, well, I should be a big shop. I should have a big, take on the big projects. There's something wrong if I'm not doing that. But we all have to start somewhere, and that's a pretty good place to start as a one-person shop, because through that, in my view, you pick up your discipline. You begin to learn about the missteps you can make, and they aren't going to be bad missteps. They'll be small things. You aren't going to put yourself under by making a small mistake or whatever when you're small. Then you start getting bigger. And we get to the bigger shop. And then we get to the really big shop. And all those people have to communicate. My question is, where's Morton? Critical joke. What I'm talking about here today, however, is experience, not theory. This is the experience of, again, a Ping Vision, one woman's experience. My experience as I relate it today. The thing we should ask ourselves, I think, or at least I suggest we should ask ourselves, is what structure does the client need? And what structure are you comfortable with? This might be, in our case, when we started, our very first client, other than Blog Her, which we did as a kind of a freebie, as a promotional piece. But our first paying client was one out in California. And they said, we will not deal with a partnership, general partnership. You must be a corporation. So Laura and I won't go into the backstory there of how we got the company started. We actually